Watching your money. Joining me now, Michael Lee strategy founder Michael Lee and Harris Financial Group managing partner Jamie Cox. Mike, I'm going to start with you this morning. Futures in the green. You've got a lot of big numbers coming out this week. We've got Home Depot, we've got Walmart, Target, TJX, Ross. We're also going to get a better snapshot of the consumer. July retail sales is tomorrow. What are you expecting? Because you've written that at this point, the market is starting to kind of show some cracks in the armor.
Yeah, look, I think this is going to be an extraordinarily complex week with a lot of different things going on in terms of retail. First, we had this trend in, during COVID, massive amounts of consumers buying stuff to the greatest degree we've ever seen, and then shift when people started leaving their houses to services, going out to eat, going on vacations. Has that kind of balance between goods and services come back into alignment? And then the other story that I'll be looking at this week is inventory. So with that shift to services from goods, we saw what was called a whiplash effect, where a lot of these retailers were sitting on large amounts of excess inventory, given the difficulty they had stocking their shelves. Have they run through that excess inventory and run through this whiplash effect to the point now where we're going to see some top-line growth, and now with inventories looking lean, margin expansion. So even though I don't expect gangbuster numbers for retail sales, the Redbook weekly same-store sales, which is something that's not as closely looked at as the headline retail sales numbers, this past 2 weeks we were positive, but the previous 3 weeks we were negative year-over-year same-store sales growth for the first time since the depths of COVID. So I don't expect gangbuster overall numbers for the consumer, but you could be running into a situation here where some of these big box retailers have gone through their excess inventory, do have some top line growth, and see some margin expansion, which could set these stocks up for some nice little pops. And then on top of that, we need to see what they're saying for guidance. We do know the economic situation has deteriorated. If we have another decline this week in leading economic indicators, that will be 15 straight months of decline in month over month in the leading economic indicator index. So it's a very tricky situation this week. I'll be very interested to see what comes out, as well as the guidance going forward.
Okay. And, certainly another thing we're going to be getting this week, Jamie, obviously, is the minutes from the Fed. So we're going to get that on Wednesday. That's the July meeting. Goldman Sachs, their economists anyway, are now saying the Fed's going to begin cutting rates in the second quarter of 2024. Look, Jamie, they don't always get a 2% inflation target from the Fed. And I'm not talking core, I'm talking headline CPI. All of the major energy markets, those indices are going up. So much for, filling up the SPR when oil was 70 and it's now 82 and change. But, I think that's the inflation story that I've had multiple guests come on this network, Mike, and say that that's your inflation and it's going to be ugly.
Yeah, Cheryl, that's an excellent point. And so we first, so PPI, the producer price index, was leading CPI throughout this entire cycle until about 3 or 4 months ago, when the price of oil really fell off a cliff. And now that it's reaccelerated, I would expect PPI to start tick up and then CPI to reaccelerate if oil prices remain elevated. It does not look like they're going to go in reverse anytime soon. This administration has done a good job of making enemies of everyone in OPEC, as well as waging war on fossil fuel. So if you see a reacceleration in inflation, I wouldn't expect interest rates to come down anytime soon without kind of a total economic collapse. Yeah. And so if you look at the charts of the last inflation cycle, where there was a double top, this inflation cycle mirrors it almost perfectly. I hope it ends in one of the troughs and we don't see another peak in inflation like the last time, but that remains to be seen.
Yep, and I'm glad Jamie brought that up as well. Jamie Cox, Michael Lee, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
All right.